Hello and welcome to the Genero Report Writer webinar recording. This recording is being provided for those of you that were unable to attend the webinar itself. Any Q&A that's happening during the actual webinar, we are going to summarize up in a PDF document so that you'll have the questions and answers that were going on during the webcast available for you as well. But for now, for the next 40 to 50 minutes, I'd like to take you through a series of slides and demonstrations that are going to show you how you can use the Genero Report Writer to leverage your existing 4GL reports, as well as create your next generation of reports. So in this webinar, I'm going to cover the topics that you see listed here. So I'll give you a brief overview of the Genero Report Writer so that you understand what it is and you understand how it works. For migration purposes, I'm then going to show you the process for updating your existing legacy 4GL ASCII reports in order to migrate them to the Genero Report Writer. I'll show you how you can create your own reports, first by creating a BDL report application that gathers and streams the data to the report engine, and then by creating a typical list report using our graphical report designer, and then creating a chart report or a graph report that's going to use that same data feed. We're going to go through these demos rather quickly. 50 minutes is not a ton of time. But the point is to show you the tool and give you an idea of the basic steps that you're going to need to migrate your existing reports and to create new reports. I'm not going to be able to stop and explain all the specifics, but we do have videos on our training portal that can provide that level of detail. We also have a reports demo project that comes with your GRW installation, and these application report files can provide you with great usage examples. I'll end by pointing out where you can go to find more information, and then I'm going to open the floor up for questions. So much like Genero is the evolution of 4GL, Genero Report Writer is the evolution of the 4GL report. It's a natural progression. So let's start with a quick overview of Genero Report Writer. So what is Genero Report Writer? Well, in a nutshell, Genero Report Writer is a report writer that is based on XML standards and where the gathering of the data is separate from the report layout. When we talk about the gathering of data, we're talking about a report application that streams the data from the Genero DVM to a report engine. This means the report engine can start printing the pages as soon as the first row of data is sent by the DVM. The streaming architecture eliminates the needs for temporary tables or temporary files, which means it uses less memory and provides more speed. It gets you the report quicker. The layout of the report is defined in a separate document, a report design document, that is created using the Genero Report Designer. And because the gathering of data is separate from the layout of the report, you can have multiple report design documents or multiple report layouts that could work with a single data stream or a single report application. So let's look at the Genero Report Writer from a system and a process perspective. So we start out with our database. So we have our database. It's full of the data that we want to report on. When you're creating a new report, your first step is to create the BDL report application. This BDL report application is selecting the data that you want to report on. When the Genero DVM executes that application, it's going to send that XML data stream across to the Genero Report Engine. Now, the Genero Report Engine needs to know how to format that data, and it's going to get this information from a report design document that you've created using the Genero Report Designer. It's our GUI report designer, which is now part of Studio. When you're creating this report design document, you need to know what the BDL application is going to send across. How does it know this? Well, when you compile the BDL report, a compiler option is added that's going to create an RDD file. This RDD file is then what you're going to associate to a report when you're developing the report. Because you've associated this RDD file, the report designer knows what fields to accept, and you can use drag and drop to put them onto a report. So when you run the report, you're going to be specifying what report design document to use. And now you can see, so the application data stream is separate from the report design. And you can have many different report designs that are using that same XML data stream. The report engine is going to format the pages based on the XML data stream and the report design. And it's going to output it as you specify. Now, by default, it's output into this SVG format to the Genero Report Viewer, which is part of the Genero desktop client. You could also use the reporting API functions to send the output to either like a PDF file or an image file or directly to the printer, but by default it's going to go to the Genero Report Viewer. So what are the basic steps for creating a report within this Genero Report Writer framework? Well, this slide identifies those steps in the order that they need to be taken. So first, you're going to determine your report requirements. What data do you need to extract? Are you going to need to group or summarize by specific data values? And you need to know this information prior to going in and creating your VDL report. So you're going to start with a new project workspace. You'll provide the application nodes, the virtual folders that help organize their file, any sort of library dependencies. You're then going to go and create your Genero report application. That's something that's going to be written in Genero BDL. I'm going to show you how to use the report data wizard to quickly create the BDL code that's going to identify what data to extract. You then compile the Genero BDL that you've created, and in the compilation process, you add a flag that's going to create the RDD file, because that RDD file is needed for our report designer. Once you've compiled and that RDD file is created, you can go and you can design the report using the Genero Report Designer. Then you run the report will run, and by default it's going to be viewed in the Genero Report Viewer, where you can look at it and make sure it is exactly what you need it to be. So to start off, I'm going to take an existing 4GL ASCII legacy report, and I'm going to import it, bring it into Genero Studio so that we have a basis of a legacy report application to work with. So the two files I have to start with, we have a custdemo.sch, we have our schema file, and we have a custreports.4gl. So we have the 4GL reporting file. So I need to start by creating a new project workspace. I'll do File, New, select Project Workspace. I want a new workspace, and I'll select OK. It puts out a workspace for me with some pre-configured nodes. I'm not going to use a library node here, so let me go ahead and remove this. I need to import the schema file, so I can go to Database, Import SCH file. I navigate to the directory where my SCH file exists, select it, and select Open. And as you can see, it brings in this custdemo.4db file, but it lists all the tables. All the tables have all my column. It's all the information you need from a schema. Let's go ahead and save this. We'll do a save as. I want to save it as custdemo.4db, and I'm going to save it inside the databases node. The next thing I need to do, just for compilation purposes, is inside of my databases node, I'm going to go into the target directory and move the -bin extension. This time, every time my schema file is regenerated, it's going to stick it inside of the workspace dir, which is the directory of my project workspace. Let's go ahead and save this project workspace. I'll do another save as, and it's saving a 4pw file. Let's go ahead and call this grw presentation. When I save it, you can see that it renames the project node at the top here. Let me go ahead and rename my application 1 node to say Legacy Reports. And now I want to add my 4GL file to this Legacy Report node. I can do my add files, find my custreport.4gl, and open it. And now it's part of my presentation, or part of my application node. Let's go ahead and execute this. This is going to execute the existing 4GL as it existed in my old legacy system. And what I want to show you is it brings it up using the Genero desktop client. It's your old traditional ASCII report. This report has a customer listing. You can see the customer information going across. And you can see that each page is being grouped by state. So I have a page for Iowa, I have a page for Illinois, and I have a page for Wisconsin. So we can see that my legacy report runs. So my next thing is to tell you how to run your legacy reports, your 4GL ASCII reports, but using the Genero Report Writer framework. So in this next demo, I'm going to show you how you can quickly modify your legacy 4GL reports to use the Genero Report Writer. So the process to run the legacy reports in the GRW, it's a simple step of 3 things. So first, you need to add 4 lines to the Genero legacy report. The 4 lines I'm showing you up here, you don't even really need to know what they do. Just realize that these are the same 4 lines we're going to add to any legacy report that we just want to quickly bring into Report Writer. We're going to add the libgre.42x, which is a library of functions that include the reporting API functions that you see up here in the 4 lines of code. We're going to add this libgre.42x as an external dependency of the application node. Then we're going to just rebuild it and go. We'll run the report and verify that it appears as we expect in the report viewer. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to open up my custreports.4gl. Once I've opened this up, I need to add my 4 lines of code, and they go right after this first record definition. So let me go. I've put these out here in a template since they're the same 4 lines of code that I add every time. I do a Control-T to open up my template list, and I have my GRW add to legacy report. So let me select that. And as you can see, it's gone and it's placed the 4 lines of code that I needed inside of my 4GL file. You'll notice up here I have more than 4 lines of code. I've put in a couple calls to a reporting API function called select device. If I wanted to send it to PDF or to the image or to the printer, instead of going to its default SVG, which is the report viewer, I would just simply uncomment one of these lines. So by uncommenting this line here, the output is going to be to PDF instead of to the report viewer. But I add my 4 lines of code. I save my changes. Now I need to go into this legacy report module. I have now these reporting API function calls. So I need to add an external dependency of libgre.42x. Once I've added it, I can now execute it. It's going to go and run this report. And it brings it up inside of the report viewer. Let me bring that into your visible area. And this report viewer, it's the same report. It's just providing it through the report viewer. Let me shrink it so it's all on one page, but I could scroll through and scroll back, and you can see it's the same report. So now that you've seen how easy it is to migrate a legacy application into 4GL, let's go ahead and start by creating a new report application specifically for the Genero Report Writer. So I'm going to show you how you can quickly create the BDL report application that's ultimately going to run on the DVM and stream data to the report engine. So the process for creating this report application, I'm going to start by creating a new application node inside of my project workspace. I'm then going to use the report data wizard to generate the BDL code for this report driver in the report block. After I generate the code, I'm going to add a compiler option to the generated file, this --build-rdd, and this option is going to create that RDD file I need later for my report designer. I then need to add a little bit more code. I'm going to add a report main module, and it's going to be another set of code from a template because it is standard code. And then once I add this standard code, I just need to update one reference to the generated report driver function name. But let me go ahead and demonstrate this to show it to you. So let's start by going into Genero Studio. I need to add a new application node. So underneath my project, I'll add a new application node. I want to set this as the default application. So I can set it as a default application. And I know I'm going to be using those reporting API function calls. So I can go to my external dependencies, and I want to add the libgre.42x. .42x. And now I'm going to right-click on this application node and select Advanced Properties. I want to make sure that it involves that Databases node as well, so I select the Databases node on my Advanced Properties and click Apply and OK. Now underneath this application node, let me go ahead and create 2 virtual folders. One virtual folder I'm going to call SRC, and that's going to contain all of my BDL application code. Another virtual folder I'm going to call Reports, and that's when I start using Report Designer. I'll stick my reports in this Report virtual folder. So now let's go ahead and start generating that 4GL code. I'll do File, New, I'll select Reports, and I select Report Data. At this point, I just need to identify what information I want to extract and send across to the report engine. We're going to recreate that customer report. So let me go ahead and take state table, we'll include that, and take the customer table, and we'll include that. Next, I need to identify how these tables are related. So I know that state.state code is an inner join, which is your standard join, with the customer.state. Once I've identified how the tables relate, I can go ahead, what columns do I want to include? I'm going to include all the columns. And then how do I want them ordered? I'm going to order it by state code and then order it by the store numbers so that my data is going to be streaming across, first group by state, and then within each state, group by the store numbers. When I click finish, you can see it puts out my 4GL. And the name that I'm going to have to match later is this report driver, run report 1 to handler. I now know what that name is, so I can go to the next step. Let me go ahead and save this file. I'm going to do a save as. And the name of this 4GL, I'm just going to call it report custemo. And I'm going to stick it inside of that source virtual folder in my new application node. I then need to select that file name. And under the compiler options, I'm going to do my --build-rdd. So that's one of the two source files I'm going to need. Let me just save. And now I also need to add another main module. Let me go ahead and do File, New, and select a blank 4GL. And because this is standard code, I've created a second template. My second template here is my GRW add to generated code. And this is the code that's needed to call that report driver and to run the report. Now the function name that I needed to match is right here, call report 1 to handler. The function names match at this time, so I'm good to go there. Let me go ahead and save this. So I do a save as. I'm going to call this report main. And I'm going to stick it inside of that source virtual folder as well. So I've created the files that I need, the BDL. Let me go ahead and rebuild this or build this. And when I build it, it should build without any issues, and it builds it fine. What it's also done is it's gone and it's created a RDD file. So if I go and look inside of my GRW webinar subfolder, what you can see is we've created a file called reportcustemo.rdd that we're going to be using in our report design document. And now we're ready to design our report. So we've created our BDL application. The next thing we're going to do is to create a list report using the Genero Report Designer. So the process for creating our list report, we're going to start by creating a new report using a list report template. Once we've started to create this report, we're going to add the data view to the report. We'll drag and drop fields onto the report as we need. And then we're going to use report triggers, the grouping, to provide any needed section breaks. So again, let me show you this in Genero Studio. So I want to add my report, so I can do a file new. It's going to be report, and this time it's going to be a list report from the list report template. This is going to open up a report inside of my central work area. Let me just shrink it down. I can hold the control key and use the wheel to shrink it down or up. But what I wanted to point out, I need to bring this over a bit, is that as I click around the report, you can see that it's highlighting little squares as it goes through. You can also see that the structure is being reflected up here in the report structure. So I can click around the report itself. Likewise, I can go into the structure and I can click around the structure and it shows me what the different containers of the report are that reflect to this structure. So I have a template here that I can start dragging things into, but I need to bring in the fields, bring in that RDD file. So I can click on my Data View tab, open my schema file, I select my reportcustemo.rdd, and by doing that, you can see it brings in those fields that we defined in our BDL report that we allowed our wizard to define for us. Now let me go ahead and want to add some of these fields to my table row. So every time a row comes across, I want that row to be printed out to this report page. You'll notice by clicking on table row, it's highlight where I need to drag these items to. Now I'm building a table or a list report, so I need to click the Create a Table Column Value Object icon. Once I click that icon, I hold down my control key and I can start dragging them across. So I'm dragging store number. You can see as I move around the report, this little red line tells me where it's going to be dropped. I want it to drop in that table row, so I can click and it snaps into place. I wanted the store name, so again, control drag. I want the address, again, I can control drag it. Likewise, I could have just selected the table row over in the structure view and then gone down the list, double clicking to add them. So I could add the city, I can add the state, I can add the zip, and things like that. Now you'll see this row has kind of moved over to 2 lines if I shrink the page down, and it's basically the page is not wide enough to fit everything that I wanted. I can change the page size. I do File Report Properties, I go to Paper Settings, and instead of Portrait, I want it to be Landscape. Now all the data fits into a single row. That's kind of looking like what I want it to do. I have my table rows defined. That's going to repeat down. Now let's say I want to put the column headers inside of this table row. In order to do that, I need to click on this Create a Table Column Value Title, a Table Column Title Object radio button, and then I need to go and I can add it. So I can add store name, drop it over. I can add store number, store name. I'll add address. And what you should be seeing here is that it's not putting in these field markers, it's putting in the actual caption or the title for that field. Now, if you wanted to see what this report is going to look like with data instead of these fields, I could hit this toggle switch, and that's showing a difference. It gives you kind of a little preview using values instead of using those field markers. Something else like the report title right now, we have a report title here. If I want to change that, I click on report title here, and there's a property called text for this item. And instead of report title here, I could say customer listing. I set this, so I've designed my report, and now I need to integrate it with the trigger nodes that are coming across. So if we look at the structure of my report, I have my report itself. The next thing I'm going to have is a page route. So the page route, of course, is the basics of a page. And then underneath the page route, let me leave page header, and I'm going to take my state code trigger node and drop it underneath the page header. So when it comes time to print out a page, it's going to print the page header first, and then it's going to start grouping things by state. Let me expand this out. So group by store number on every row. I want this table header or table row to be printed on every row. As every row is spun across, print out the data for that in this table row stripe. Let me go ahead and save this. So I'm going to save my report. I want to save it I'm going to put it in the /bin subdirectory just because I need it to go there for compilation reasons. And then I'm going to change the name to list report 1. I'll go ahead and stick it in that reports virtual folder. And now the next thing I need to do is to go into my main module and say, okay, well, when you're running this, don't try to use a report design document called chart report. I just made one called list report 1, and so now I'm asking it to use this list report 1. We can save that, and now when I execute it, it's going to execute this, and you can see that it's putting out my customer report, except it's all of the information's on one page: Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. If I want to mimic that report that we saw earlier and have each state's data on a separate page, I just need to reorganize my structure for that report. So I bring up my list report again, and this time I'm saying, well, the state code is what I want to drive this. So every time I hit a new state code, then I want you to go out there and start a new page route. And then within the page route, they'll have the page header. After the page header, I can have my remaining trigger nodes. I'm going to put page header above it. And then on every row, again, I want to have my table row displayed. So once I organize this, I can save it and let me re-execute it. It executes, And this time, when you look, each state has its own report page. And that's how easy it is to create a list report. So for the next thing I want to do is take you and show you how you can create a chart report that's utilizing that same data feed. So the process I have for creating a new chart report, I'm going to start, this time instead of using a template, I'm going to create a new report using the empty report template. I'm going to add data view to the report. I'm going to drag and drop my toolbox objects onto the empty report. I'm going to show you a little bit about adding a container and adding a map chart. And then for the map chart item, I'm going to have to specify a key to organize data by and what value I'm summing together. For the map chart itself, I'm going to have to give it a name. I'll arrange it inside the report structure and with the appropriate report triggers, and we'll save it and we'll go. So let me go ahead and show you this. So to start off, let me go ahead and close the list report. We're not going to be using that. In fact, let me go ahead and get rid of some of these others as well. Okay, that's good. So let me go ahead and add a new report. So File, New, and it's going to be Report, but this time it's going to be an empty report. And when I add an empty report, what I want you to see up here is that basically we have a report, the head node or the report itself, and right now it just contains a page root. So I can go to this toolbox, and my toolbox, here's where it's saying, do you want to add containers to your report? Do you want to add items like word boxes, page numbers, images, map charts, which we're going to get to soon, reference nodes, barcodes, etc. So these are things I can drag onto my report. Inside of the page root, I like to organize things within containers, so I'm going to go ahead and add this Stripe mini page. I'm going to drag and drop it onto the page root. Let me go ahead and rename this. So I'm going to call it Stripe. And this Stripe is where I'm going to be, eventually I'm going to be putting my map chart. So let me go ahead and add the data view. My data view for this report is going to be that same data stream. So it's that report.cusdemo.rdd. And as you can see, it puts out those same fields. I've added my data view. Once I've added my data view, you'll notice that it adds those trigger nodes up to the report structure. Let me go ahead and add a map report or a map chart to the Stripe. So I go to my toolbox, I have my Stripe, and I want to add the map chart. I use the double click method, it's add my map chart, and that map chart has a map chart item. Now, so for our chart, we can see we're going to be using a pie chart. Just wanted to show you that I could have selected a different type of chart to use. So instead of a pie, it could have been a ring chart, it could have been a pie 3D chart, it could have been a bar chart, etc. We're just going to stick with a pie chart for right now. Now, what do I want to organize? Now, the chart that I've chosen to do for you, I'm just going to have a simple pie chart that shows the number of customers for each state. So the key value, what I'm organizing by, is for each state. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this function, RTL expression wizard, and I need to identify that grouping field. Now, it's going to be data dot, and I can use control spacebar to open up help. So I really want the data dot state name is going to be the field that I want to group by. And you'll notice I chose state name. I didn't choose state code. And that's because I want the result of the report to be something that is visually recognizable. So instead of showing IA, I want it to say Iowa. It says expression OK, so that's good, and I can click OK. And now for each row, what do I want to sum up? Typically, any numeric field can be used here. So if I perhaps had, a revenue line or a total cost line, I could be summing that together. In this case, for every record that comes across, I just want to add 1 to the counter because I want the total number of records or the total number of customers. So I can just stick in the number 1. And now I have my key defined, I have my value defined. Up on the map chart itself, let me go ahead and give it a new title. So instead of insert title here, I'm going to call it number of customers per state. Give it a new title name. Last thing I need to do then here is I need to organize it inside of my report structure. So I have my report itself. Underneath the report, I'm going to have my page route. Underneath that page route, I want to have my stripe, and within my stripe, I have my map chart. Now here's where I'm grouping by state code. So what is my map chart being organized by? By that state code. But then for every row that comes across, I want you to add that value of 1 for each row. So I want you to get that running count of customers. I've organized my data structure. I have my chart report defined. I can click Save As. I'm going to again put it in that bin subdirectory, and I'm going to call this Chart Report 1. And I'm going to save it inside of that Reports virtual folder. I have my chart saved. If I go to my projects, I need to go back into my main module. And instead of running List Report 1, this time I wanted to run Chart Report 1, but using that same data stream. I can save it, I execute it, and this time it's now gone and it's created my chart report showing me the number of customers per state. So that should show you how easy it is to be creating list reports, chart reports, etc. Learning the basics of doing all of this is something that you can get under your belt in a few days. And then it's learning the intricacies of how to change things, how to work with the properties, what are all the possible properties that are out there, and how do they affect the GUI or the report itself. And that's where your learning curve is going to come in, but that's where you're going to get to spend the time to make it look exactly like you want the report to look like. So what else do I want to show you here? I did want to show you the demos, report demo application. So let me go ahead and open inside of my documents. We created a subdirectory, my Genero files, and there should be a sample subdirectory, and within that a report subdirectory, and in that a reports.4pw. What I really want to show you here is that this demo comes with a whole series of reports. So I can look at a series of report designs up here. It comes with its own order program or its own reporting program. It also comes with an interface that allows people to select whether they're putting out to PDF or whether they're putting it out to an image or directly to the report viewer. It allows them to select between reports so that we don't have to modify that report main each time. The user selects it by choosing appropriately from the form. Let me go ahead and execute this just to show you. So when this executes, it brings up my order report form, so I can say, well, I want to run this order report. I want to send it out to SVG or to the report viewer. When it executes, and what you can see is that it displays a pretty nicely formatted report. So this would be a good place to go and identify the details for if you wanted to make something that looked as graphical as this. Go ahead then and you could say, well, this is the order report. I could go and look inside of my order report.4rp and see how it's done. So I encourage you to go and tour all of the different reports out there, see what is being displayed. If you want to have a more robust 4GL to look at and to take from, go into the order report.4GL. So that was the demo reports. And again, they contain the BDL application file, form definition file, and a variety of report definitions. What if you need more information? Well, we always have the online help. So you have the question mark help button, you have the F1 key, you have the studio help. They're all leading, the report writer help is a subsection of the studio help. So feel free to go and look in the report writer manual to learn more about the tools. Additional resources we have, you can go to our training portal at www.4js.com/training, and there are training videos up there that concentrate more on the specific how-tos of accomplishing specific tasks within Report Writer. We do have a very active forum right now on www.4js.com where the people using Report Writer are asking questions and are getting their feedback. In addition to the forum, there's an FAQ page on the support site. It's not quite as up-to-date or not quite as fresh as the information on the forum, but it's another place you can go to find out frequently asked questions. And last but not least, if you need assistance, you can write to the US support at helpdesk-us@4jays.com. That's the presentation we wanted to give you on Genero Report Writer. Just wanted to give you a feeling of how it works, what it looks like, and how easy it is to take your legacy 4GL applications, put them into Report Writer, and then recreate them all using the way Report Writer is designed to work.